Video is brought to you by MoviePalette.com and enter ROOM15 for 15% off of your palette. Hey everyone, I'm the Blood Guy. Welcome back to another documentary review. And I want to do something a little bit different with this. It is a one and done documentary, so it's not 3, 4, 5 parts. It's just one documentary under 90 minutes. And it's not of a serial killer. Instead, it's on a case of mass murder, more specifically a familicide or a family annihilator. Kind of a recent case. It was something that happened 5 years ago, but this was a huge documentary when it came out, which I think was 2020. September 30th, 2020. It was released to Netflix. I had heard a little bit about this case prior, seeing it on social media. I saw like news articles of it. I knew the guy's name, what he did, where it was, how the family was found. I knew that, but I didn't really know too much about the case prior to seeing it. But I do remember, being on Facebook at that time and everybody talking about this documentary. I mean, it was huge. In fact, I think it was Netflix's most watched documentary at that time. Of course, it is American Murder, The Family Next Door, which is all about Chris Watts, and not just Chris Watts, but the Watts family murder, or murders, that occurred on, I think it was August 13th, 2018. And it was directed by Jenny Popplewell and produced by James Marsh. Ooh, I think James Marsh is actually an Oscar-winning producer. Music by Nainita Desai, if I pronounce that correctly. And it was put out by Knickerbocker Glory, which is a company I don't think I know anything by. But it's only 82 minutes, and it goes by at a very quick pace. This is very well done. And a lot of it has to do with the format, which I'll get into, the editing. It is very greatly paced. Came out 2020, so 2 years after the murders. I believe around 1 year after the final conviction. So it takes place in somewhere in Colorado. And Chris Watts, on August 13th, the early hours of August 13th, 2018, he murdered his wife, Shanann, and his 2 daughters, Celeste and Bella. Bella was older, and Celeste went by Cece. And I think their ages, I had their ages written down, or at least I thought I did. But I think they were both under 5 years old. And it was before 6 o'clock in the morning, and it goes all into that. How Chris Watts was found out, how, for a while they were missing, and everyone was on Chris Watts' side, help this man find his family, how they got the confession out of him, and then the aftermath. So that's basically what it's about. Now, how it's presented, I actually have to give a lot of credit to, because I kind of want to talk about the format for a little bit. It's not found footage. I know. Going over to fiction, it's not found footage. A lot of people call it found footage. It is a successor, but it's not part of the found footage genre. Looking at films like Unfriended or Searching with John Cho, or that newer film that just came out, Missing, where I don't know if it's like device footage or screenshot footage, whatever you would call it, where it looks like someone's screen. And, we see all the windows and texting and social media. And then there's different kinds of that. There's host and we need to do something, which is more Zoom call footage. Then there's like spree and dash cam, which is all live stream footage. This is more like Searching. The whole documentary, there's no talking head interviews with anybody. Friends, family, law enforcement, lawyers, no one. No interviews, there's no voiceover narration, there's no narrator. And it's all comprised of police body cam footage, interrogation room footage, uh, some surveillance footage, but also videos that Shanann posted to Facebook, statuses, posts, all on social media, um, text bubbles that go back and forth. So it is pretty much comprised of everything from social media and various forms of footage. So it does kind of feel like a searching or missing or unfriended kind of film, which I do want to say, and it is probably a testament to just how well this is made. But like, when I watch a movie like that, it feels very gimmicky, and it doesn't work for me. Now, for a documentary, it works really well, and I think it actually helped the documentary quite a bit. In fact, while I was watching it, I was kind of trying to separate the nonfiction nature of it and thinking like, this could be a really well-made movie like those ones that aren't very good, or how at large this kind of format or genre does not work for fiction, at least for me. But for documentary, it works really well, and I think that helped with the documentary. It does kind of make it feel like a Dateline special or like a Dateline episode, but it's still very informative. I actually did enjoy how it was presented. It's edited very, very well. It it actually, since there's no interviews or narration, it kind of has this stream of consciousness throughout the whole thing. It feels very steady and fluid. The only time it's kind of broken up is when we jump around in time, which we do. The main events takes place, I think, August 13th through the 17th or 18th, but we jump back in time like 7 months before murders, 5 months before the murders, 4 months after the murders, 3, 2, 1 days before. It does jump around a lot. That kind of breaks it up a bit. But I really do think the way it was presented with just footage, audio, and social media posts was actually a really fresh take on this sort of true crime documentary. It did kind of feel like something on Dateline. But probably the biggest, this is probably where people are going to get mad at me, and I've read other reviews or watched other reviews where people kind of said the same thing. This very, very easily could have been one of those sensational, salacious, egregious, sort of cringy investigation discovery, wine, soccer mom, true crime shows, like Husbands from Hell, Killer Dads, where it's all just about the evil of Chris Watts and how he destroyed this family. Which, yes, he is guilty. He absolutely does deserve what he got. It was terrible what he did. Nothing justifies what he did. But this doesn't take that route. It takes the route of showing the entire family, showing the whole family dynamic. And actually the documentary even goes into that, how, even after Chris confessed, there was a lot of backlash towards, Shanann, her character, her family, for, driving Chris to do it. I will say it was a dysfunctional, unhappy marriage. And, obviously murder's not the way out, but I'm trying to think of a way of how I want to say it. And Shanann did not deserve to get what she got, but in a warped, twisted... okay, take a documentary on, like, Jeffrey Dahmer, where we'll never understand what was going on in his head or how someone got to that point. But with someone like this, you see the dysfunction, you see the unhappy nature of the marriage. You can see how someone with problems, with serious issues, probably could have been pushed to what he did. Again, I don't condone it. It's not justified. But someone with those issues, at least in a warped way, you can kind of see you know, oh well, it, do I dare say like it wasn't out of the blue like some family annihilations? You know, it actually works as a cautionary tale. Maybe I should have started with that. It's a cautionary tale of how, some, even without abuse of various kinds, marriages can be unhappy. And I've looked into familicide uh, as a study quite a bit, and there are signs in the Watts story that's very similar to other cases of family annihilation. Sometimes it's a control thing, like say Ronald Gene Simmons. It could be like a status or financial type situation, like say John List, or like just the pressures and stresses of everything can be another one. But it's also been shown that, at least in cases where the perpetrator is the husband and father, a lot of things were similar, usually around the same time of year, either before the holidays or before the kids start school. Um, there's a lot of effort to cover their assets just prior, like taking the kids out of school, trying to sell their house, uh, being involved in the investigation, trying to look like they're innocent. So there is a lot of that. Of course, when you have the familicide that's perpetrated by females, it's a lot different. Oftentimes the spouse is not killed, and a lot of that is more dealt with trauma, abuse, and mental illness. But, like Susan Smith or Andrea Yates, I'd probably say the Susan Smith case was probably the closest to Chris Watts. Because, yes, Chris Watts did find someone else. With that, he was happy. Shanann, he thought the marriage was going to end, so he thought he was out. Shanann wanted to fight for the marriage. But according to him, she threatened to take the kids away, never see them again, and that's what made him strangle her. Now, of course, what makes it even more tragic is what he did to the girls. I mean, they were still alive when he stuffed them down the oil tank. They found oil in their lungs, so they were crammed in this pipe or this tank, and, they were still alive. And, of course, that is horrific. Even more why I don't condone what he did, but I feel like I have to stress, this wasn't like other documentaries or pieces that I've seen on family annihilation where it's all on the killer. It was a perfect Leave It to Beaver family, and out of nowhere this came, which sometimes that does happen too. And I actually think it took balls on the filmmakers to actually show the whole family dynamic, and that it was unhappy on both sides. Now, and there are glimpses into their life. One, yes, I understand that Shanann's job was some sort of social media and marketing. But a lot of her videos don't really look like they pertain to any kind of marketing. Yes, I know just posting will help her get money. It is part of her job. But she filmed everything. And, like any job, it might take its toll on the spouse in some way. It's like a wife being married to a detective. Sometimes the job can weigh on the spouse, but there's some clips, like one where Chris is dressed up as Santa for the girls, and she's just nagging him because he left his phone out in the garage, and she needs hers to film, his to take photos, and she even goes out in the garage to get his, like, can't trust husbands for anything. So stupid. And there's even other people in the documentary through audio. Even her best friend Nicole says that she's known to be bossy. She's known to be overbearing. So, I do commend the filmmakers for not trying to shy away from. I'm sure people could see it as a victim blaming, and that's not what the documentary is doing. That's not what I'm doing. It's just showing objectively what this family was like, and you know, obviously Chris had his own issues, but I thought it was very well made. Um, I do think that maybe if this was more of a traditional documentary, like with people involved giving interviews, maybe it could have gone more in depth. Because really, the only backstory we get is how they met, how they got married, and then through social media posts, how the girls were born, how they moved, stuff like that. Um, so it doesn't go as in depth as some other documentaries I've seen, but for the format it used, which I thought was very fresh, sort of a different way to watch a true crime doc. I it goes by at a great pace, and I've seen it twice now. I saw it back in 2020 when it first went to Netflix. Excuse me, and again just now, and I found it just as fascinating and actually kind of scary because yeah, they do look like the all-American family on the outside. But another thing that this sheds a lot of light on is, not just photos of all-American happy family, but also how who we are on social media and who we are in real life are usually two very different things. And this, I think, is called like the deception of social media. That's a huge part of this piece. Is that the happy family they were on Facebook is not what they were at home. So it's a cautionary tale for a lot of things. The happy people on Facebook might have something going on. Also for people in relationships, make sure that you really know this person before rushing into a marriage. So it is more than just a true crime documentary. I thought this worked very well as a cautionary tale. It could have very easily just been like a Husbands from Hell, Killer Dads, just cringy investigation discovery show. But it didn't. It took a very objective look at this whole family unit and just showed us how it was. And I really do commend it for that. And so it does go all the way up until Chris being spared the death penalty because he was offered a plea deal. A lot of times that's their only option. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but a lot of times it is the best option. Also, sort of the juxtaposition of video footage of Shanann's family at the wedding versus their victim statements at the end. Also, parts of it reminded me of Making a Murder, which is very different considering how Chris is actually guilty. But like the lie detector, it shows him being prepped for taking and getting the results of his polygraph. And it felt like the agent or the technician was trying to intimidate him or almost setting him up for failure. It had a very Brendan Dassey kind of feel to it. Very different because he is guilty, but yeah, there's definitely a lot to take away from this documentary. And again, the format of how it's presented, I think, helped it a lot. It does help that almost everything that's discussed was filmed or recorded or posted or texted, so we have it. So that really helped it. And again, for like the 100th time, how it just took this objective view at the whole picture, both sides, how they were both unhappy, and how it's not always just the a monster coming out randomly, even though that does happen too. And yeah, I really do like this document. I mean, it is both sad and scary because that objective look does show us that, oh yeah, that happy family in person on social media, there's probably some shit going on at home. So it works as a cautionary tale as well. So yeah, I'm probably not going to do a summary for this one. Just quickly go over the things that it covers. Probably just because the whole story is in that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But that is, so yeah, I guess now we'll go into the list of things that it covers. so now we'll go into everything that the documentary covers. It should go a little bit quicker because, like I said, there's no talking head interviews. It's all literally footage and social media footage, I guess. So it's kind of hard to break up the different segments as to what happens, but hopefully this will go by quicker than some of the other documentaries. But it opens up with a series of Facebook videos of a happy all-American family. Then it says August 13th, 2018 in Frederick, Colorado. It's what's it called? A ring cam, like the doorbell camera of Shanann Watts being dropped off, going inside. And then we see a bunch of text messages popping up, not back and forth yet, with a bunch of footage of around the Colorado area. Concerned text and missed calls from her friend Nicole Atkinson. And then that's when we go into the body cam footage of the first officer on site. The friend's Nicole is there. No one's answering the door. And that's when it says American murder. Basically the officer saying he can't go in unless the homeowner says it's okay, but there's no one there. The friend is on the phone with Shanann's mother, but the officer says that's not good enough. So then that's when Chris Watts finally shows up. And he lets them in. They find her phone and her purse in the house, off or dead. Her car is still there. So everything seems weird. But then we get a montage of her social media statuses and posts and videos that she made, kind of giving her backstory. She started working at an early age, worked her ass off, had her first house built before her mid-20s. How she met Chris, and then talked about their wedding with footage and photos of their wedding. It goes into the history of their kids and their life together. The cop is then told that the neighbor across the street has a security camera in the front of his house and can see the Watts house from his camera. So Chris and the officer go over to check it out. They see Chris arriving sometime between 5 and 6 in the morning. Says that's all he has. Then Chris leaves, and immediately the friend tells the officer, like, he's way off. Like, he never fidgets like that. Something's wrong with him. And I do agree with the officer. I mean, he did say, well, you kind of got to consider his situation. Like, yes, it might be weird, but this is a weird situation. Can't jump to conclusions yet. He shows him backing in at 5:17, which apparently he never backed in. But he says they had problems with people stealing out of garages, so that's why he did that. So then it gets a little bit more into like Facebook videos of their personal life. Like there's a video of Shanann breaking the news of baby number 3 to Chris. And this and one other video kind of shows the deception of social media, because he seems happy, like, oh, cool, right, yeah, awesome, baby 3. He does seem excited, but at the same time, it's like he just walked through the door. I think he'd just come home from work. Now he's got cameras in his face, this big news. And it is said in the documentary that Shanann just filmed everything and almost always had a camera put in his face, had to get a reaction for everything. And you could tell there's some irritation behind there. But also, damn it, it also shows social media post history of like Cece and Bella when they were born, as they grew. And then the documentary is broken up into the number of days missing. So we go to August 14th, missing day 2. We get an audio call of Chris's descriptions of his girls for the missing persons report with photos. Then he goes into Shanann. We go back to body cam footage, passing out missing flyers to locals, search dogs at the Watts house, Uh, Chris is interviewed by a reporter at his house. Police interrogation room, the interview footage talks about the marriage not having that spark anymore and marital troubles. And then this is when we kind of start to jump backwards. We go to 7 weeks earlier. Shanann flies out to visit Chris's parents in North Carolina. Chris stays behind. Facebook videos of their trip. Nicole is interviewed. Um, I don't remember if it's footage or just audio, but she's interviewed and she mentions how Chris's mother gave Cece some ice cream that had something in it that she was allergic to, which is an honest mistake, but Shanann made a great big deal about it, texting Chris, blowing Chris up, saying, "You need to talk to your mother about this. This is so uncool. I never want to see her again." And so we see the text back and forth. And as I said before, it does even show like texting something out and then not liking it, so erasing it, typing something else, or misspelling, erasing, and correctly spelling it. I don't know if there's a way to check like absolute phone history to see if that's how the phone was used, or if that was put just for a little bit of dramatization. That's what I'm leaning towards. But so it goes into the ice cream. Then 5 weeks earlier, text back and forth about how he had never called them on his own. Goes back to footage of their wedding, put to audio of Chris saying his family never liked her. His mom didn't like her. His sister really didn't like her. Nicole saying that his parents didn't even go to their wedding because she could be seen as bossy. Which, and then we get into a Facebook video that I think really kind of shows the dynamic of this marriage, where Chris is dressed up as Santa for the girls. So he knocks on the door, Shanann lets him in, and you can tell under the beard he's all smiles, glad to be doing this for his girls, and she immediately asks him, "Where's your phone?" He says it's in the garage. Why? He said, "Well, I'm filming with this one. I need to take photos with this one." And he just comes in the house, sits down. He's like, "Where are the girls?" She said, "I haven't got them yet." "Where's the phone?" And he's like, "It's in the garage on your car." And she films herself walking out to the garage like, can never rely on your husband. I told him to bring his phone for photos. So stupid. So it kind of trying to establish maybe why people have these feelings about her, about being bossy or nagging or overbearing. So then it goes into the police interview where it goes into, do you think she's cheating? Hey, you seem to have lost a lot of weight for some of these photos. He says 60, 65 pounds. He's been working out. He looks a lot better. Are you cheating? He says no. So we go to August 15th, missing day 3. Footage of the polygraph test, or being set up, being prepped for the polygraph test. And the agent seems to be... It kind of had some like Brendan Dassey vibes from Making a Murder. Like she's trying to intimidate him. Clearly Chris did do this, but she seems to be setting him up for failure, like trying to put the idea that he did it, or trying to intimidate him, which from what I've read and seen, this is not the tactic to use for polygraph test. But news footage of the story, how they're still missing, video of Chris arriving in North Carolina. He eventually did meet up with him. Texting between Shanann and some other friend about how he's not intimate. He hasn't kissed her outside the airport. Kissed or touched her. She thinks he's cheating. Footage of Chris being told he failed the polygraph, and again trying to intimidate him, as is this other officer or detective that's the one that was there for the interview. Uh, audio of interview with Nicole Kessinger, who is the Nicole that Chris is having the affair with. On how they met at work, videos and photos of them together. And I don't think these are from social media. I don't think they would do that. I think these are photos that they had on their phones that they were able to get a hold of. The interrogation room, they keep pushing Chris. He has to speak to his father, Ronnie. So they fly him out. They put him in there. They start to speak. Chris tells him that she smothered or choked the girls, and his reaction was he snapped, and then he did that to her, and he didn't know what to do. And how Shanann is buried in something, and the girls are in an oil tank. After so then they come in, he tells them the same thing, but then they just come right out and say, I don't think that's true, I think you did it. So then 3 days before the murders, text of Shanann to Chris about having a boy, how she wants to fight for the marriage, and there's a letter she left for him that we also see stating the same thing. Like, I'm not giving up on us. I'm going to fight for this marriage. So then Chris Watts is arrested. There's news reports of his confession in the story. Day 4, the candlelight vigil outside their house. Press conference with Shanann's father. Photos of where she was found. Then we jump to 2 days before the murders. Texts where they're seemingly fine. Then it jumps back to Nicole's interview. The Nicole in the affair. And if she ever hinted that his family might be an issue, or that, not wanting kids, in like a sinister sense, she says no. Interviews with both Nicoles, Chris's Nicole and Shanann's friend. Her friend says that Shanann found evidence that he might be cheating. His Nicole goes into the time they spent together the day before the murders. More news footage. And then it goes into the public backlash towards Shanann and her family for driving him to murder, essentially. Pushing him to do it. Just being so nagging and bossy that it just... I think just trying to maintain this lifestyle, which I don't think she was working. I think she was part-time. Pretty much everyone believing that, calling her out saying she deserved it, which she didn't. But there was a lot of backlash towards her and her family, which it goes into. Even like a press conference footage of her father saying, please leave us alone. Then we go to the day before the murders. Their text back and forth as she boards a plane coming back home. She went on I think it was a business trip to Arizona. So she's at the airport, she's coming home. And then the same ring cam footage of her at her front door from the beginning of the documentary. So then we jump to 3 months after the murders. November 6th, 2018. Chris enters a plea deal of guilty on all 9 counts to spare the death penalty. February 18th, 2019, there's audio of his confession. And then, for some reason, we jump back to November 19th, 2018. Footage of the trial, statements by his and Shanann's mothers, and then he's sentenced to life. And then it just ends with the text saying, in America, 3 women are killed by their current or ex-partner every day. Parents who murder their children and partner are most often men. The crime is virtually always premeditated. And so that is the documentary American Murder, The Family Next Door. I found this very fascinating. It went at a great pace. It was very seamless. Actually, I think taking out the talking head interviews kind of made it more this steady stream of information. And this did not feel... It felt like a Dateline episode or like a Dateline special, but it certainly did not feel as sensational or egregious as some uh, salacious investigation discovery, or investigative discovery, the Soccer Mom channel. Shows like that, like Husbands from Hell, Killer Dad. It didn't have any of that, and I think this works more. Not to me, it was more than a documentary about just a husband and dad who killed his family because he was having an affair and wanted that life. It felt more than that. It felt more like a cautionary tale for, yeah, there's dysfunctional, unhappy marriages out there. This is not how you take care of it on both sides. And I do commend the filmmakers for willing to show this very objective, cautionary look at it. It very easily could have just been, the evil dad, evil husband, just focus harshly on what he did, but instead it showed the entire family dynamic, which I think is the best way to look at a story. And, I thought that just the steady stream of various means of footage, social media stuff, I thought all that worked. Audio of interviews, it went at a very fast pace. I mean, it's just under 90 minutes, and it went by like that. It went by very quick. I could definitely see why this was so popular. I mean, when this first came out on Netflix, I remember going on Facebook and everyone was talking about it. And when I checked it out, I knew very little about the case. I really just knew Chris Watts killed his family. This is what he did with them. But I didn't really know any of the finer details. And so I've seen it twice, and both times I found it equally fascinating and equally interesting. So how it's presented, how it's edited is very well done. But the probably the biggest positive I can give it is that it stuck to the truth in showing this objective look. It did just focus on the evil that he did. It showed, even though no one deserves to have this happen to him, especially the kids, but it did take this objective overall look at, okay, this is the entire picture. This is everything everyone was dealing with. And I found that more fascinating. I think this could be used as a very effective cautionary tale. Because I think it does hint that her and Chris did not know each other for very long before they got married. So I think this could work as a cautionary documentary. I thought it was very, very good. Great pace, edited, shot very well. And if you haven't seen it, even though I just spoiled the whole thing, definitely still check it out. There is a lot of information and a lot going on, even more than just what I said. Again, that's just the highlights, but I really enjoyed it. I can definitely recommend it. There are a few more longer multi-episode docuseries on Netflix that I'll be getting to, but I kind of just wanted to do like another one and done real quick. And I think this is one of the better one and done ones on Netflix. So yeah, very good, fascinating case, and not sure which one. I think next I'll do the Sons of Sam one, so stay tuned for that, and thank you for watching.